All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Coffee Q&A. It's the second day of the year, January 2nd, 2025. How's it going? And if you're just watching for the first time, welcome. This is the Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of coffee Q&A. If you have coffee questions or coffee thoughts, let us know in the comments over here. And love to talk about it. But we do this pretty much most Monday through Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern. So how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about coffee and something called Bibingka. And this is Bibingka, which is a Filipino, I want to say dessert. I don't know if I would really categorize this as a dessert or anything. Kent, Maku, good morning. How are you doing? And it is a rice cake that is, there's many different types of bibingka, right? This particular style of bibingka is the one that comes from my mom's hometown in a place called Nueva Ecija, a town called San Leonardo. And so my aunt made this. My aunt heard that I was doing live stream, and she's like, I will make, and she heard that I was using some Philippine pastries in the show, and she's like, I made you this bibingka. And I was like, oh, excellent. So my aunt actually grew up in a house across the street from my mom in the town, in the neighborhood of their town. It's a really small town, right? Really rural, rice country kind of town. And during Christmas time, this is what they make on the streets. So like I mentioned for the Noche Buena episode on Christmas Eve, I showed you a bibingka that was made commercially. This is actually made by my aunt. So she made it. And this is in the style of the town where they take the rice flour with sugar and I guess milk or something, and then they bake it. And typically, this is baked in an oven, of course, because we're here. But this typically will be baked over fire, over coals, using banana leaf as kind of like the mold. And then you put butter and a little bit of cheese and as you can see here, there is shredded coconut. So a really fun thing to have. Mom, how are you doing? And like, unlike the other one that we had the other day that had like salted eggs in it, this does not have salted eggs. At least I don't believe it does. Typically, in my mom's hometown, it is not a salted egg they put in there. So I thought we'd have some of this and brew some coffee as well to go along with that. And I thought, I should get some coffee in the Philippines, but I have none of that roasted at the moment. So I just grabbed this bag from one of my friends, Mari Portillo, who is a coffee grower down in Honduras. And so she's in the Comayagua region. She has a farm here called Cafe Finca Fe y Gracia. And actually, this is a coffee she gave to me when I saw her. And she was like, Capucas is where she's from. And she's like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. I want you to have this. And so she gave me a bag. And I was like, all right, thanks. I appreciate that. I love it. So we're going to have some of this. And yeah, that's what we're going to have. So this is a red catuai. As you can see here, here's a card that she gave me. And so she roasted this. I didn't roast this at all. So Mari Portillo is a producer in Las Capucas. And it is a red catuai rojo. Cup profile says dark chocolate, tangerine, floral. So it's nice. It's supposed to be chocolatey, washed coffee, almost 1,800 meters. And the nice thing is, I think the chocolatey rich coffee should go well with the bibingka, right? It's strange. Like in the Philippines, I don't really think that Filipinos drink. Well, I guess they do. But like I'm thinking about the Christmas time celebrations. Are they drinking coffee with this? I don't believe so. I think it's more chocolate. Like I would like to think we're more of a chocolate people or something like that. We'll turn this on. All right, now we're going to see if we can do this correctly today. Sometimes I seem to struggle with this. Oh, see, there's the milliliter thing. We're going to leave it there. All right, so we're going to make our normal 12-ounce serving, which means that we're going to use 2 grams of coffee for every finished ounce, which means that for 12 ounces, we're going to need 24 grams of coffee. That's good enough, 24.1. Don't mind the fact that it says milliliters. The guys at Fellow, they have this milliliter setting, right, where you can change to milliliters to ounces to pounds. The milliliters, they really, this is a scale that's designed for water, right? And so if you're familiar volume of water is equal to weight in water. So 1 gram of water is by weight is equivalent to 1 milliliter of water by volume. So they have, made this homage to the milliliter, so that if you want to pour your coffee, you can do that. You pour water over your coffee, you can do that and measure milliliters. And I tend to think that's a little bit affected, and I make fun of it a lot. So that's what I'm doing. I'm mocking it at the moment. I'm mocking it because I think it's because if you use any other liquid, milk or something, that will be inaccurate. That will not give you an accurate reading because it's reading grams, not volume. And milliliters, I'm not going to go into that. You already know my thoughts on it. So we're going to brew this coffee today with the Cafec Deep 27 flower dripper. So thank you, Keone, for this. And we're going to open it up here. Every day we want to do unboxing. I don't know why. Denwin, how are you, man? Good to see you. So if you're not too familiar with the Cafec, of course, is another Japanese drip manufacturer, and they make it out of this polycarbonate, and it is a thin, narrow dripper. And honestly, I don't really know what the theory is behind why you want to go narrow instead of wide. Like maybe you're losing weight, you want to be skinny, so you have skinny coffee. Initially I was kind of wondering, will enough coffee for a 12-ounce fit in this brewer? And it does. So, we brew with it pretty much in the same way. I haven't noticed a grand difference. And I don't know, maybe you guys have a better experience with these things, right? So, because mainly when I'm brewing with brewing devices, I'm using the device to get the coffee, right? And I'm not necessarily taking each brewer and doing batteries of tests with them to see the variations in the brew, the variations between different brew recipes in this and versus, let's say, like the V60. I just don't have the mental bandwidth to do that, right? So I just kind of brew with them, and I just kind of enjoy them because they're just, either attractive brewers or they have nice, I guess they brew nicely. As long as it's not making bad coffee, and I think it's really difficult to make bad coffee, right? So let us take this, put that scale on here. Ken says, drinking decaf made with the Deep 27 right now. Oh, all right. So do you have any special recipes or approaches to using the Deep 27? I'm interested to know, because I basically just follow our basic recipe, really simple. Then we have our Abaca Deep 27 filters. Now these filters actually, this whole package of filters actually it pisses me off, right? I'm not like I hate on it, but it's just like the way that this package, right? So it's got these sleeves. So there is 100 of these in here, and the way they package them, right? They package them in these little stacks of filters of squares, right? And they package them side by side and in opposition, as you can see. And then this packaging, right, it's open, and I keep them all kind of in a box, stacked up and whatever, and sometimes they're sitting on the side, but if they get tilted, this loves to slide out. And I've had it happen more than once where this whole pack will slide out, cascade to the floor. Sometimes it'll break up, and sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, such an irritant. But I'm cheap, and I don't want to I'm not going to make a box for it. Although maybe I should, I don't know. So we got our filter here, and as you can see, the filter is very deep, very deep. Anton says a deeper coffee bed equals better fines filtration. Oh, okay, very good. Very good. So we're going to take this and open this up. I'm going to open it up, right? In this case, I'm just going to fold this over like always, because I like the seam to kind of sit flat inside the brewing device. Put this in here. Maybe we should zoom out a little bit. It's a little bit tight. Okay, good. So there it is. We got that ready. Let's go and do some grinding. We've got our fellow Ode Gen 2. Yeah, Gen 2. I'm going to keep it kind of like in this middle setting here. So let us grind away, grind, turn it on. All right, excellent. Excellent, that was nice and fast. So now one of the issues that we're gonna face here right now is that because we've got this narrow filter, we have to take this big amount of coffee and pour it in here. And these, while these may help, I think these may help us, these like wings. I'm not too sure. This is where, if you have an AeroPress that came with a funnel, this is where the funnel can help. I think the funnel will fit there. I think. I've never tried it, but I'm just theorizing. Okay, so let's see if we can get this to go in without spilling. Oh no, I forgot to. You know what I forgot to do? We're gonna do the Omniel here. And I'm gonna call this the Omniel move because that's where I learned it from. Well, that's where I thought about it. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna tear it out. We're gonna see how much retention. We had 24.1 grams when with whole bean, and that we put into the grinder. Will we have 24.1 grams of coffee? Oh, wow, look at that. 0 retention. Wow, that's nice. That's nice, huh? Such fancy benefits with modern equipment. Okay, so now we've got all lined up here. Let's look here. Okay, what this here? Oh, darn it. This is sometimes where I make the mistake. We gotta heat up the water. Oh, some days. So how's your New Year started? What did you guys do yesterday for New Year's Day? Like me personally, I haven't left the house in 2 days. I was supposed to go to my cousin's house on New Year's Eve to go hang out with them, and then I just never left the house. I was like, I got so involved with what I was doing. I was working on this project. I was like, I'm so involved with it. I had to like finish it, and I was like, I got to finish it. And so I just never left. I haven't left the house in 2 days. I'm like, oh, I haven't been out of the house since Monday. I'm like, I'm gonna go. My nephew. I'm gonna take my nephew out for some lunch today. So, all right, we're just gonna wait for the water to heat up. It's on the way. But I don't know. Yeah. So what's going on with that? I mean, it's now Now today is finally a work day. We're back to like regular schedule. I have some things that I have to do. I've got to go get some propane. That's what I need to get. Propane is an important thing because I'm working in the garage, so there's no heat out there, and it's pretty darn cold today. All right, just waiting for this water to get ready. Any comments? Any thoughts? Let's see. Let me see. I was actually looking. I should look on the channel and see were there any comments left by people or questions on other videos. Oh, here's someone asking. So Dan Barb is asking from the robot lever espresso video, the one that's about the meticulous. A few things would be interesting. How much electricity does it take? Because here in Europe, the prices are getting insane. Also, a key question for me, what materials getting in touch with the water because aluminum is bad for health? Will it be service stations or stores that repair the thing over time? For example, what if temperature sensors lose calibration over time? What about the descaling? Does it need to be descaled or cleaned like a normal espresso machine? What about the internal mechanics or the piston works? Oh, these are good questions. And what about the internal mechanics or the piston works with oil pressure or air pressure, or how it can move up and down, and how is it maintained over time? I'm going to venture something like, let's say the descaling, right, with the meticulous. And if you're not familiar with meticulous is those, if I remember correctly, it's kind of like the flare in this vat where you pour the water that you're using for each shot into the device. right before you make it, and heats it up and then brews with it. So the descaling, I think, will probably be less of a factor because it's not really sitting there for a very long time. And what causes a lot of scale buildup is the fact that, like, you have a brew boiler, right? That you have a brew boiler that is filled with water and it's being heated, or the water is sitting there. So at some point in time, or especially in the case of brew boilers, you're heating the brew boiler, or let's say this La Valentina, right? You're heating the boiler itself to like 240 degrees. So you're heating enough so that there's steam generation. And as you open the valve and you let the steam out, right? It's just steam. It's basically, if we captured that steam and put it through a cooling tube, it would actually condense and we would come up with distilled water, right? The distilled water is clean water. There's no mineral content. So in the case of the boilers, and you're using the steam pressure especially, and the rest of it's evaporating, through your system as you're brewing, there's going to be some sediment left over, and that's where the scale really builds up. And so in the case where the meticulous, I don't think that the scale will build very much because, well, it's just not there long enough, right? You're putting it in, you're brewing with it, and then you're done. Now, I don't remember if there's a steam feature inside the steam boiler that could be an issue, but it also depends on the water that you have. Like, I haven't really had, like, this machine is 20 years old. I've never descaled. I mean, I've never taken apart the boiler to clean it out as far as like scale, which doesn't really tell you anything, because it could very well be that after 20 years, there's just this big calcium deposit surrounding the entire thing, which could very well be. But I've also taken apart of the machines where they've been in service for years and they didn't have very much scale buildup. Of some, but not as much as I've seen. I've seen ones where you have like stalactites hanging from the top of the brew boiler. You're like, wow, that's crazy. So I don't think that's necessarily going to be an issue. Ken said, spent yesterday online searching for new coffees. Ooh, so did you find anything interesting to buy? What are you targeting? I'm always curious to know what people are interested in. But as far as then with the meticulous, the question that he's asked, that Dan is asking is like, what about repairs? Will they have repair stations? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, they're still a very tiny company, even though they have, you talk to them and like they have their staff members that are all over the world because it's it's a network society. So, but that doesn't mean that they have necessarily the resources to handle service and support in a way that maybe you're used to. So if you're like buying maybe like an espresso machine from La Marzocco, or especially Nova Simonelli, they have a network of help to help to support you. So that's going to be a little bit of a different situation than a small startup company that's still trying to launch their product. All right, let's get some water here. Oh, we need to switch our modes. I'm going to switch to the Brew Assist mode because I've really come to like this Brew Assist. Like, I think it's, pretty good. Okay, so we're ready to go now. Hit that button, and now we're going to start brewing. We're going to try to do we'll do 60 grams. Anton says, I'm drinking a cappuccino made with my favorite Robusta. Oh, awesome. Is it, what is your favorite Robusta? Like, whenever I'm in Germany, I go to, this is specifically to Heidelberg. So down in Heidelberg, there's the center court, right? The town square where they have the Christmas market. And I think there's a place called Tachi, is it Tachi or Tabachi? They'd like a coffee and tobacco joint, like a retail store. The coffee doesn't look like, I'm a little bit concerned. It looks like a darker roast. I don't know if you had that, Anton, but how is their coffee? And Ken says, yes, spent yesterday on, I already read that one. Tucson Bubba, what's going on, man? How are you doing? Oh, it's a little cat in a box. Oh, that's awesome. Ken says, I ordered Liberica from Holland and a couple of varieties from a Finnish roaster. Ooh, this Liberica that you're ordering in Holland. I am curious, where is it actually being grown? And what is the processing? Liberica, I'm actually familiar with quite a bit more than I think most coffee professionals, in that, in the Philippines, Liberica is actually very popular. There's a place, there's a region called Batangas, which is not too far from Manila. And they grow a lot of the Liberica there under the local term, which is called Barako. And most of that, almost all of it, I think all of it pretty much, is all natural process. So it's got this really like kind of berry fruit kind of flavor, which I really like. And so I'm just curious to know, how does the Liberica that you're sourcing, how do they process it? I just think that's interesting. Tucson Bubba says, great, awesome. Yeah, I love the cat. I do like the cat. Anton says, Canephora Chakra Warmy from Ecuador variety. Oh, wow, that sounds all fancy. Napa Payamino, natural, spot on cacao and popcorn. Oh, very, very nice. So these are two coffees that you're blending together, is that correct? Oh, wait, I should be doing the overhead cam with this, right? I should do the overhead cam. I'm really not paying any more attention. We're a little bit slow. Yeah, 2 minutes, 44 seconds. I keep talking and then getting. 100%. No, I'm saying, but I mean, maybe I'm just reading what you're saying, what you're writing wrong. That's all. Canephora Chakra Warmy from Ecuador variety. Okay. Oh, Napa. Oh, so it is a natural Robusta. Okay. I'm not familiar with the term Napa Payamino. I wasn't sure if that was another varietal or another region. Okay. Gotcha. The grinding is a static calamity. There's always challenges in coffee making. And Ken says that his Liberica is a honey process plus yeast inoculation grown in Temanggung, Central Java. Ooh, that does sound very nice. Tucson Bubba says, I want to try some, gosh, I can't read very well tonight. I want to try roasting some Liberica. I did roast some Timor, which they say is a hybrid between Robusta and Arabica. Oh, that sounds very good too. And how did that turn out, the Timor? I don't think I've ever had a Timor coffee. We are slow today, 4:15. We're just catching up to. This is what happens when you talk too much and you get distracted from what you're doing. But that's all right. We're just kind of chilling. All right, so we're still brewing. And the brew, I think, is... I'm going to say this, but I don't really know because I haven't really been paying attention. But I feel like it's slower. Maybe it's slower. Maybe because the way that maybe the coffee when it's in such a, and maybe Kent, maybe you might have more thoughts on this, but maybe because it's such a narrow brewer that perhaps you might need to go a little bit coarser to get better flow than you would like this grind, which is at 1 click south of 6 on the fellow ode. And which is typically good for let's say wide mouth pour over brewing, has been. Is it slower? I don't know. It seems like it is. Tucson says that I liked it, but Hoon wasn't a fan. Yeah. Sometimes you're never always going to be 100% in sync with everyone else, right? I know plenty of people. I'm like myself. I love natural processed coffees overall. I love them. I love blueberry naturals. I just love that thing. But I know quite a number of friends of mine who are also in the professional ranks They hate it. They're like, oh, that's disgusting. That's like defective. It's like, oh God, here we go with the defectiveness again. So, don't let that dissuade you from, don't let that, what do they say? Don't let that yuck your yum, right? Okay, so we've got our coffee here. Anton says, Liberica is so interesting. It would be nice to have it all from where the thing is that there's just not much production worldwide on it. So it really is limited. And like you said that there is, like Ken said, there is a Liberica in Indonesia. I've heard of that. I've not had any. I don't think I've had Liberica in Indonesia, but so it is a little more limited. There's some more people. As the last 5 years have gone by, there's been more interest in the specialty ranks. I know one producer in the Philippines who was trying to elevate the level of production of Liberica. And that's the whole thing. It's like, how and now there's suddenly like all these people that are growing nice quality Robusta. That's actually been in the works for the last 15 years, right? People started, this one guy, Sitharaman Estates in India back in 2005 was really trying to develop fine Robustas. And then the UCDA in Uganda, the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, has also been really pushing their farmers to grow better quality Robusta. And as you know, Robusta has widely been considered as inferior to Arabica, right? But it's really, to my mind, really mostly been a fact that it just hasn't been thoughtfully cultivated or as thoughtfully cultivated as Arabica, right? And I started thinking about this back in 2005 because when I first tried the Sitharama, I was like, this is really good. It's really clean. It's really sweet. It had some weird funkiness. Like this one coffee that I tried had a very distinct tomato character to it, which some of my friends, and here's to your point there, Tucson, like, my friends didn't like it. They were like, oh, that's just weird. That's just too weird. But the tomato, I was like, I'm really kind of an experimental kind of barista. So I was like, ooh, the tomato, if I got some of that, this is, remember 2005 when I tell you this, right? So don't judge me on 2025 standards. But I was like, we could take this coffee with this tomato thing, encapsulate it in gelatin, right? Like spherification, and like have little what do they call those little cherry tomato coffee bites? So something like that. That was kind of like one of the thoughts that I had for that coffee. But it is. So it's nice to see really that the Robusta production has really come into its own now, 20 years later. But it's always been in development. So it's always in the works. So I think that Liberica can also reach that point. All right, let's have a taste of let's look at our elixir here. So nice and rich looking. We're looking for some, what did Mary say? We need dark chocolate, tangerine, and floral notes. Let's see here. What are we going to have? Oh, wow. Actually, you can tell it's a little bit heavier. The brew is a little bit longer, but actually there is that kind of tangerine-ish, maybe mandarin kind of note. A little bit subtle, good body, nice roundness, a bit of that dark chocolate. Now, I would definitely say dark chocolate, not dark cacao. But so that's go Mari. Now, this is a coffee that still tastes that's still delivering on what their points are. That tastes really nice now, richer, right? This is a richer. If you're a lighter, brighter kind of person, this will not be your cup of tea. You will not be enjoying this, right? But if you like a richer coffee, like more Central American type of coffee, this is actually quite nice. And this is a coffee that she gave to me in April when we were in Chicago for the SCA show. So I do think that coffee will last a lot longer, as a viable drink than we tend to give it credit for. Anton says to Ken, I actually tried that exact coffee. It was the only Liberica I tried so far. It was too intense fermentation for me, too sweet somehow, a kind of yeasty. Typically with a lot of at least with the Liberica's I've tried, and I would say that your experience with the Liberica that you can share, would be similar to the Philippine coffees that I've tried, because the fermentation is a little bit heavy, but that sweetness and the sweetness is coming from that natural processing, right? But yeah, it may not be for everyone. Just like geisha is not for everyone. Like I tried geisha and it's nice. I enjoy it, but I can spend my money on other things. Oh, and Ken said, I just wanted to try it. Never had an Liberica before. Yeah, and I think that's important. It's always good to try. Like, it's good to try and open, because the more you try, the more you develop your palate, the more you develop your experience, and the more that you can, have greater education on coffee. And actually, and for me, it's about anything taste related. Like, I think is important. If you want to enjoy coffee better, my experience is that I found that to help train my palate more over the years was always thinking about flavor. And how would we describe, what are the flavor experiences we're having at the moment, and how would we describe that, should we need to describe it, right? So even if we're out eating, like eating pizza, how would you describe it? Eating, and I think the real difficult exercise is, like, say you're eating an orange. Yeah, you're eating an orange, you're like, oh yeah, it tastes like orange. Well, what does that mean? Like, how? Maybe try this for yourself, right? Like, whatever you're eating, let's say something basic like orange or apples or whatever, something that you would actually use as a description for things, right? How do you break that down? How do you break that down to someone that's never tasted an orange? Like, we always will say things like that. Oh yeah, it tastes like orange. Oh, okay, good. Now we get it. How does that taste? That's where it really gets difficult. You're like, oh man, I'm really stretching for that. Really stretching. So, Tucson says that I love all tastes in coffee, but some people have a more narrow spectrum of taste. Yeah, that's true. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. I mean, certainly to you they're wrong, and that's very well found. You're like, you don't. If you sit there, like, you have the taste of a peasant. They probably do. But I don't. I try not to. When I'm talking to people about flavors, I try not to let my personal preference discolor my conversation with them, right? Like, I have a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, I love this coffee. I love coffee so much. I love to go here. I love to buy this. And I was just like, oh, that's awesome. That's great. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It may be coffee that I will never want to try. But, it's like, oh, all right, good. I can be happy for your enjoyment, Anton says, my favorite coffee so far was the Geisha Village Narsha Honey. Oh, nice. Nice. I have not tried that myself. And honestly, I'm not really one of those people that goes out to look for geisha, because I'm not so, I've had it for many years. So I'm just kind of like, okay, it's good. It's good. I will, if it comes across my way, I will definitely try it. But I tend not to run after it. You know what I mean? Had to spend 15 minutes blowing off the chaff. It's just, yeah, sometimes it gets crazy. Ken says, I still regret not buying any eugenioids I was offered some months ago. It happened. Well, it'll come back. Don't worry. It'll come back. Somebody's always going to be making more of it. Peter's with us. Peter, man, how are you, man? Haven't seen you in a couple of days. How was your, didn't you go on another research trip? How did that go? Anton says, I noticed that the orange as a taste note often seems to indicate a more aggressive acidity. Oh, okay. And Tucson says, nah, that's just the way people are. You can't really do anything. They just are who they are. It's all right. It's all right. Anton says, and red fruits, a diplomatic way to not write down tomato. And that's interesting. I've never thought of red fruit being tomato, and I've never thought of it that was what they were trying to cover up. That's interesting. I never even thought of I know, I realize that tomatoes are fruit. technically, but I never would have. When people say red fruit to me, I tend to think of like plums, or what do I think of? Like strawberries, raspberries, tomato and paprika. Actually, I don't even know. Here's the truth about me. I don't even know what paprika is outside of the powdered form. I mean, I realize it's something that's grown and it comes and they've crushed it, they've dried and crushed it. But I don't think I've ever seen whatever paprika is as a natural product. Peter says, I'm in Malaysia right now. Oh, you're in Malaysia right now. Okay, very good, very good. Did you happen to go by Tricia's place? It looks like I saw her on her Instagram. It looked, I think she's in Kuwait right now. So if you went there and she wasn't there, I guess she's in Kuwait. But if you went there, I'm curious to know, how was it, and what coffee places have you been, and how is your experience there? I'm very curious to know what your experience has been like. Tucson says, I bought a Nicaraguan geisha and tried 5 different roasts. Wow, nice, dude. Do you remember who you got the geisha from in Nicaragua? Oh, yeah, cherry. There we go. That's a red fruit that I think of. Anton says, but people love to try white plums. People love trying white plum, strawberry, cherry on the packaging. If they can, they will. If it said red fruit, there has to be. I think that I tend to think that people say, like, I will say, let's say like natural processes, right? Natural processed coffees. What really intrigued me when I first started in the business years ago with natural coffee. So people were like, oh, with the naturals, some naturals really have a blueberry flavor to them. I was like, oh, and I love blueberries. I love blueberry muffins. I love blueberry, I love blueberry muffins. That's really what it is. I love blueberry muffins. And I'm intrigued by that. I was intrigued by that. And so I would seek it out back then. And then I had some that were like incredibly blueberry, like just beautiful. So I think that if it's kind of gives the hint of blueberries, but not really a level of clarity, then I would probably describe that coffee as having berry tones rather than blueberry tone. Because to me, blueberry is very specific. And I think cherry and plums would be very specific kind of thing. Like you can really taste it. But if it has that kind of plum-ish, cherry-ish, but not quite cherry, I don't know if that makes sense. But that kind of suggestion of those, then perhaps, I don't know why Siri's talking to me, but perhaps that's when I would use a term like berry or red berry kind of descriptions. I mean, maybe it's different. Here's the thing. Here's something that could be a regionality based on the flavor palette and cuisine that each of us have available to us, right? Like, I think it's so curious, Anton, that you described like red fruit as being tomato and paprika. Like that is something I was like, wow, I never would have, like that just doesn't even, like, just never would have thought about that. But I wonder, like, is that something, is that a description that comes to mind based on the cuisine that you live amongst, right? In Germany, right? Is that how, I wonder if there's something about the way that the Germans think about food that leads red fruit to those type of flavor profiles, a little bit more savory, a little bit more, savory, I guess, that because when I think of fruits, and I grew up in America, so I'm very Americanized in the way that I think about foods and flavors. So when I think of red fruits, I may think of something like cherries and apples, right? Even though apples are kind of a stretch, but they're red, right? But those all tend to be sweeter flavors. And America, by generality, is a much sweeter tasting cuisine, right? Like we talk a lot here on the show about desserts from Asia and how Asian desserts and other desserts are very mild in their sweetness compared to American desserts. And America is a very sweet forward country. So That is curious. To me, that's a very curious thing. Ken says paprika is the same as bell peppers. Oh, really? See, you learn something new every day. You learn something new every day. Yes, but she was not there. Yeah, I guess she was in Kuwait. Paprika looks like chili, but tastes like a bell pepper. Okay. Yes, see, I've never had it fresh. I will now have to go see if there's something fresh. And Tucson says, but it wasn't expensive. Oh, the Nicaraguan geisha was not that expensive. But what is expensive? Like, if you don't mind sharing with how much was it? Because perhaps not expensive compared to the $2,500 that a buddy of mine paid for it per pound. But, compared to other coffees, is it still pricey? I mean, I think geisha-wise, if you're paying $25 to $30 a pound, that's for green, that's fairly good. For good quality geisha, that's all right. Anton says, I love the blueberry flavors in coffee. There's nothing but, me too, man, me too. Peter says, loads of good specialty coffee here and specialty tea house. Yeah, there's so much. I met a lot of people while I was there judging that had coffee places, but I didn't go to, I was only there for like 4 days. So I was really tight with my schedule. And I only had 1 day to myself. And that's when I went to go visit the kopitiams. Because honestly, for me, it's like, I'm going to go, if I have a chance to see this old school, what's new to me, versus go out to see specialty coffee shops, I'll go see the old school, especially if I'm very limited on time, because I just think to me, it's a little bit more fascinating to see how these operators operate, what they're making and how they're making it, and then the whole world that surrounds them. I think to me, it's just a fascinating thing. But I would love to go back to KL to spend, a week or so and really just kind of get out there more and really get into it, right? Plus the food in that peninsula is so interesting. I don't even know the foods. I had a whole bunch of it, but it's there's so much to explore, I think, with their cuisine. Anton says, I love tomato and paprika. And my most expensive so far was €30 for 100 grams of Indonesia Cup of Excellence. Ooh. Was it one of the higher level? I guess for that, it must be a higher level. 30 euros for 100 grams. That's quite a bit. Tucson Bubba says $9 per pound. Okay, that's not bad. I mean, I guess we're getting to the point where geisha is now, so much production is available that it's not going to have it. Like when I first started, when geisha first came up, when geisha first exploded on the market, my mentor was, must be my nephew arriving. My mentor was one of the people that bought the very first auction lot from Price Peterson and Hacienda Esmeralda. This is 20 years ago now. And I remember that people were crazy about it. They were like, this is crazy. And it was really good. It was really great because it was so different than any other coffee we had tried before. It was just so different and delicate, tea-like, nice complexity, beautiful florality, which is very different. This is kind of the coffees that we're drinking. And then we go to this really light, coffee that's tea-like, and and it was sold at an astronomical price. Astronomical, people couldn't believe it. Even I was like, holy God, that's expensive. And today it would be a pittance for what geisha goes for. So $21.75 was the final auction price, and people were losing their minds. This is when coffee was being traded for 95 cents a pound. So it was a whole different era of time, and we're all in the specialty business, right? We're all in the specialty side of things, and even everybody in our side of the business was like, oh God, that's crazy money. That's crazy money. Now it's not. Now it's not so crazy. Anton said, I just want to see how different, but yeah, you gotta explore it, man. Gotta explore it. Always gotta explore. From Boom On Coffee. I'm not familiar with those guys in Nicaragua. Do you remember what region? Is it, I imagine, maybe Matagalpa or Jinotega? Those are kind of the big growing areas, or maybe up north in Ocotal, close to the Honduran border. And Ken says, I paid 80 euros for 100 grams of Finca La Negrita Geisha last summer. It was XO. Awesome. Awesome. Worth the money? Worth the money? I mean, if you get pleasure out of it, you enjoy it, and you think it's worth the money, then by all means, it's totally worth the money. Oh, you know what? We've been talking about it. We've got our Bibingka here. Like I said, the Bibingka is the specialty from my mom's hometown in the Philippines. And this is more the Christmas style Bibingka, right? This is what they eat during Christmas time. It's supposed to be hot, but since I've been babbling on, it's not so hot. And as you can see, the crumb is kind of like open. It's very moist. You can feel its voice, and it's also very resilient. My aunt made this, and so let's try it. Let's try it and see how it goes with the coffee. Oh. So this particular one, for those of you who this is baked, but for those of you who go to Chinese, like dim sum houses or Cantonese type restaurants where they have these big steam baskets and they sell the rice cakes, right? The steamed rice cakes that are they kind of slice them, that are really lofty and thick, but they're dense and a little bit like with a good chew resistance to them. That's the texture of this Bibingka. This particular Bibingka has that texture. Very resilient. Very what in the Philippines we call makunat. My cousin, and I don't really know, I don't know how to translate. I said this earlier, I don't know how to translate that. My cousin saw me post that on Instagram and she gave the translation for it, but chewy, springy, thick, resilient, but sweet. Like if you're familiar with that steam cake from the Chinese, this has the similar texture to that as far as resistance, but it is sweeter and more flavorful. Like the other one, the steam cakes tend to be a little bit on the blander side, right? I think you're supposed to eat other stuff with it, but this is quite and good with the coffee because it's actually nice. The sweetness balances the coffee. Tucson says, I don't recall what region it was. Okay, no worries, no worries. Okay, gotcha, Kent. Not really worth the price. Sorry. But at least you had to experience it. Now you know. Now you know maybe never to do that again. We all learn somewhere. So as you can see here, like, I'll show you this. You can see the crumb. This is the kind of crumb that you see in those steamed rice cakes. And it's because of the rice flour. I don't know why this turned out this way. I don't understand enough about chemistry of rice flour to present this, but it's just so interesting to see that the texture is like that. I remember this being, at least in my experience, I remember it being a little bit more cakey like, rather than this kind of like steam cake. But still good. Like the flavor is still super nice. Buttery. There's some shredded coconut on top. Thank you, Tita Norma, for the Bibingka. This is quite delicious. Peter says they're doing things here that's very niche and nouveau, really ahead with the times and trends. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I would like to, I definitely want to go back there and check it out. All right, well, we had our Finca Fe Gracia from Honduras. Thank you, Mari, for that. We had our Bibingka from my Tita Norma. Thank you very much for that as well. And second day of the year, we're back on our schedule. We're back with another coffee Q&A tomorrow. I'm going to go take my nephew now out to go for lunch and make him do my errands for me. So, thank you very much for tuning in. Always good to see all of you. Hope you have a wonderful day or a wonderful evening. And, in your case, Peter out there in KL, I hope you have a wonderful tomorrow. So, all right. So, back again tomorrow with another episode of the Coffee Q&A, 10 a.m. Eastern. So, see you then. Oh, yes. Mom's right. Tonight, if you're free, the Coffee and Cigars live stream, 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Ono Live channel. We'll be doing the 20th anniversary Tatuaje cigar, as well as talking about coffee and recapping our year in cigars on that show. All right, so until then, have a great one. And thank you, Tucson.